Final Fantasy XV opens, quite fittingly, with a splash screen that reads, "A Final Fantasy for fans and first-timers." Having played every numbered entry since the first, I saw both reverence for the old and a courtship of the new in this latest chapter. I'd like to say that it's an elegant fusion of the two, but in reality, it's more of a duality, a conflict that reaches into nearly every aspect of Final Fantasy XV. In the end, its commitment to the bond between its four protagonists keeps it glued together, even when some of its design and story elements threaten to fall apart. Prince Noctis and his fellow travelers Gladiolus, Ignis, and Prompto aren't the typical band of strangers uniting to face evil. They are close, long-time friends, and it's this closeness that gives Final Fantasy XV's often incoherent story all the heart that it has. While the danger that befalls the land of Lucis never truly materializes until the end of the 40-hour tale, and the would-be romantic element is a non-starter, the kinship of these four is fleshed out and reinforced beautifully, whether in combat, on the road, or anywhere in between.
Buck up, we're just getting started.
Fully real-time combat replaces the turn-based systems of the past, and while it sadly doesn't feel like a traditional Final Fantasy in any regard, the way it makes you and your three AI-controlled compatriots feel like a cohesive fighting unit kept it mostly enjoyable. Well-placed flanking strikes are rewarded with big damage and beautifully animated team-up attacks, and commanding one of your buds to use one of their stylish-looking special attacks at just the right moment can be a literal blast. Especially here, the banter flies as they cheer each other on and pick one another up when they fall. They turn monster slaying into family bonding time, and I love it.
You're on fire today!
No big deal. While the visual and thematic payoffs are big, the actual mechanics are actually quite thin. Holding circle performs a continuous combo string on whatever is closest, and holding square allows you to dodge or block nearly all attacks as long as your mana holds out. And with both magic and the awe-inspiring summons playing such a disappointingly minimal role in combat, there just aren't a lot of interesting decisions to make or techniques to master, unless you count wrestling with the sometimes unruly camera. Especially in enclosed spaces, and even during some climactic boss fights, the camera becomes your biggest enemy. The open world of Lucis is huge, and its towering geographic features and sweeping wide-open plains give it a rare sense of scale. Though exploring it was easily my favorite part of Final Fantasy XV, the logistics of it takes some getting used to at first. You'll need to think about chocobo rentals for long off-road trips, where to spend the night, and even what to eat. Though initially inconvenient, it makes the simple act of getting from A to B feel like an actual trip. There are fast travel options between previously explored points, but generally, you have to make the journey at least once. This deliberate, regimented structure immersed me in the world, and also gave the relationships between the characters time to develop in innumerable little ways. But there's more than just bromance on the open road. There are tons of side missions to participate in, treasures to find, hidden dungeons to uncover, and Imperial outposts to raid. It's all a little bit spread out, but I was always engaged in one way or another. It's just a shame that the story more or less drops the open world for most of its second half, in favor of some extremely linear and generally less visually interesting settings. One particularly painful area temporarily strips Noctis of his friends and his powers, forcing him down narrow corridor after narrow corridor for almost 2 hours. Sure, I could have gone back to the open world to take a breather when I needed to, but I don't want to have to choose between advancing the story and having fun. And that's a decision that 15's back third had me constantly making. When I'm riding chocobos across the beach at dusk with my 3 friends and hunting iconic Final Fantasy monsters in the open world, Final Fantasy XV feels like nearly everything I could want from a modern Final Fantasy. But when it funnels me into linear scenarios and drab constricted spaces that plunge the combat into chaos, my blood boils. There's just so much good here, especially in the relationship between Noctis and his sworn brothers. It just comes with changes and compromises that were, at times, difficult for this longtime Final Fantasy fan to come to grips with. For more Final Fantasy XV, check out our first 15 minutes and our PS4 versus PS4 Pro graphics comparison.